timing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That would have been a disaster. All right, so blah, 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 all the preface stuff, you heard it. Luckily, I didn't get into any of the real meat yet. Thank you so
You said
much.
first things, and I was like, oh, wait.
Yep. So, yeah, I would have been really upset if I got through the hour and realized that we had missed all that. Well, that knocks 8 minutes off the recording time, so I can get this on Instagram easily. Anyway, so the first thing I thought of, in terms of thinking about what does somebody need when they're sitting down and they really don't have experience at working from home, working remotely, and they're starting to think about what kind of tools they need. And I said, the first thing we need to do is we need to get organized, right? And I think one of the things I know, if you're anything like me, your mind's going to be like flooded with ideas and questions and stuff. And so the first thing we need to do is a way to purge all that, right? So the first thing I think we need to do is get organized. And one of the things that came to mind, and this is one of those things that, some of my friends refer to, my quote unquote golden nuggets that I share. These are things that I share in passing because to me they're second nature and I just assume they are for everyone else. But all of a sudden somebody says, whoa, no, I hadn't thought about that. Slow down, Seth, stop. What was that you just said? And this is one of those things, my first sort of tip for this, which is bookmarks. If you're working remotely and you're working from home, you're going to be using a lot of things online, which means you're going to want to start developing the habit, forming the habit and developing the practice, I should say, of organizing your bookmarks, right? And I'll share with you, exactly how I've got mine set up, okay? So we're going to go here. And of course, I've got my bookmarks bookmarked, right? I use Chrome. Obviously, I highly recommend Chrome. And I'm going to click bookmarks here. And you can see how I've got it very, very organized, right? In fact, and what you're seeing here, keep in mind, is based on evolution, based on things that I've set up out of force of need. Initially, Airtable was just a single link inside my services, but Airtable became something that I used so prominently that I decided to pull it out in its own folder because now I have links to specific Airtable projects that I use frequently, right? So initially, this was the only Airtable link, and it was down here under Services, under Project Management. But like I said, Airtable became so significant in my daily use that I gave it its own folder, because I wanted to be able to access specific things within Airtable frequently, starting with, as you can see, our 97 and up database, which has all the links to every lesson, every call recording that we do, everything's in there. And that stuff is actually shared on our website. So zooming back out, the key is to get organized. Notice I have under services, accounting, banking, CDNs are content delivery networks, SoundCloud for podcasts, Vimeo, YouTube for video, and a specific link to some stock video footage that I was given access to in my account. Communication services, Penzu. Don't ask me why I put speed test in here. I guess because it has to do with my internet communications, and so I just needed a place to put that. WhatsApp, obviously. Yammer I never use anymore. It's just kind of still stuck in there, right? Entertainment links, Google Play. I have music going on. Sometimes it's Spotify, sometimes it's Google Play Music, and every once in a while I like to take a break and play some Pac-Man. So anyway, again, I don't want to get too deep. The idea today is my goal today is to go wide, but not real deep. I want to give you a resource with a lot of ideas and links that, like I said, you'll get access to in the notes after today so that you can start looking into these services and think about which ones are right for you. These lists that I'm going to be sharing with you of resources are by no means complete. Right? There's definitely a lot more out there than what I'm going to show you. What I'm showing you are the ones that I use and the ones that I really like the best, right? And again, the idea is to give you something to think about, to give you something to take notes on, and then to give you something where you can dive into yourself a little bit more deeply. And then at the end of this, I'll also talk about some resources that I will sort of use and make available to you so that you can, follow up with me and ask more questions and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about that by the end. So, and I'm seeing Mariette's in the chat. I remember the day that I showed this probably for the first time. I think it was on one of our Friday Zooms that I do every week. And Mariette went nuts. She was like, oh my God. And I saw her posting videos over the next week about how she was going crazy organizing her bookmarks. But I think it's important. And like I said, I think it's important right up front to especially if you're going to be remote, which means you're going to be using a lot of cloud-based services, you're going to get overwhelmed very quickly if you're not real organized. My opinion, my experience, of course. So you can start with your browser bookmarks, but keep in mind as you dig into this more and more, and as you sort of live in this world like I have for so long, there's going to be a lot of other links to a lot of other things that it's almost like you're going to, not that you're going to outgrow these bookmarks, but you're going to need something else. There's a lot of article clippings that I like to grab. And last year, Airtable actually released a bookmarklet that was genius for this kind of thing. So I actually created an Airtable base specifically for bookmarks for this kinds for clippings, for services. And I'll just show you a quick example of what that looks like. It's over here, and what this lets me do, you can see I've got like Forbes articles. This is a link to a post in a Facebook group where there were a lot of people. Somebody went in there and asked about my Bulletproof bookkeeping course, and a lot of people, replied and gave me a lot of love. So I linked to it as a testimonial. And then to the right, one of the things I love about Airtable, which again is another tool I'm strongly recommending, is now I can categorize this. So, and I set this up as a multiple select category so that I can tag things with different topics. So this goes under testimonials, and it also has to do with Bulletproof bookkeeping, right? As you can see, I've also got a read later category, and then within the things that I read, other sort of categories in terms of, is it business development, is it marketing, is it just for learning, that kind of thing. If I clipped something because I thought it was going to give me a good idea about something I wanted to do, some content that I wanted to create, I've added those bookmarks, okay? And then over here, I just added a column for where it applied that I can mark when I actually read an article, because I was like, I don't necessarily want to delete the bookmarks. I may want to go back to these things, but I do want to remember or have a way of knowing if it's something I've already read, right? And here I can make notes, and the Airtable bookmarklet lets you grab a screenshot of whatever page you're bookmarking, which just helps kind of give you a visual of what you're clipping. And this is an automatic column that gives you the date that you clipped it, right? It stamps today's date when I clip something. So anyway, that's how you take your bookmarking to the nth degree. That's like extreme bookmarking. Remember they had that show Extreme Couponing, right? This is like my version of that. That's extreme bookmarking. Because again, over time, you just accumulate so many things that you need a way to organize it. And a lot of it is, I'll tell you where it becomes important, I think, in the bigger picture. Again, I'm going to qualify a lot of things I'm saying today with, if you're like me, which hopefully you're not, but if you are, you get a lot of thoughts going around in here, and it can get overwhelming at times. And what I find is that when I know that I've got something sort of stored somewhere, that I know in 6 months from now, when I have no independent recollection of what it is or where I put it, I'll be able to find it in 30 seconds or less. That's kind of my rule for how things get organized. And if I go to look for something and I couldn't find it in 30 seconds or less, then it means it has to get organized better. And usually the clue about where to put it is, where's the first place I looked when I first went to find it, right? That's about as much logic as I ever want to apply to something like this. But it's important because I know that that's where instinctively I'm going to look for something. So that's the way I try to keep things organized. And it is extreme, I'll admit that. But it helps me calm down and stay focused on what I need to do in the moment that I'm in, right? Because if I'm trying to do something, if I'm trying to work on something, especially things like creating content, if I'm trying to focus on that, and I'm starting to worry about, wait a minute, that article I clipped earlier today, I don't know if I know where it is. Where did I put it? Was it here? Was it in the browser bookmarks? Was it there? Those thoughts, when they start creeping in, can be incredibly distracting. So knowing that I have sort of the peace of mind that comes with knowing that I've got things very tightly organized, it actually goes a long way to helping me stay focused when and where I need to, right? So I'm harping on the bookmark thing for that reason, and it's bigger than just bookmarks, but that's, like I said, just kind of the first thing that comes to mind, okay? Another thing that comes to mind right away is if you're working remotely, and especially if you're going out on your own to do that at this point, then it's going to be important, and I'm not going to go too deep into this because I could do a 10-hour webinar on this just by itself, but I definitely want to mention it right up at the top because I want you thinking about it right away. If today's day one and you're deciding to work remotely and you're deciding to work for yourself, then you're going to want to think about creating content so that you can let people know about the services that you offer, right? You're going to want to decide which social networks you want to be on: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. You have to figure that out. Maybe Snapchat, probably TikTok if you're appealing to a younger audience these days. there's, you just list them out, and you probably can't do them all at once. So you list them out and then you prioritize. All right, I'm going to focus on Facebook and I'm going to start there, right? So you really need to start thinking about building a social media presence and also creating content that you're going to put out there on that social media presence. And I'm assuming it goes without saying, but I'll say it just in case. Obviously, you'll need your own website, because the point of social media is to grab traffic and get them over onto your own website, right? You do not want to rely on these social media sites as your only means of contact with your prospects and customers, because if for some reason those sites decide to shut you down, they cut off your contact, which means that business is not yours, it's theirs, right? So you need to build your own business, which means you need to bring people into your world. And that's why a lot of the reason a lot of you are here today is because you landed on my site at some point and you filled out a little opt-in form at the top of just about every page on my site that says, get updates. And it's very simple and quick. I just ask for your name and email so I know who you are and so I can reach out to you. And that helps me keep in contact with you. And I'm not at the mercy of any social media platform in order to do so. Matter of fact, if Facebook decided they didn't like something I posted today and shut me down, I could still reach out to you and send you an email and say, hey, by the way, my Facebook is shut down, but here's how you can get in touch with me, right? It's so important. That's a very important distinction this day and age, I think, about understanding what it means to build your own business versus building a business on someone else's platform. So got to be thinking about the social media presence, got to be thinking about building that list of people that you're in touch with who are interested in whatever it is you have to offer. And obviously the way you get people interested in what you have to offer is by creating that content that lets people know about what it is that you have to offer and why it's valuable, right? And speaking of content, we've got three main forms of content, right? Okay, there's spoken content, like podcasts. There's written content, like blog posts. And then, of course, there's video. And I talk to a lot of people who tell me that they're not comfortable with video and they really don't like to write, or vice versa, or both. And so the one thing I think most people can agree on, and I recently had a conversation with somebody who was adamant that she did not want to do video and she did not like to write. She thought she was a terrible writer. I bet she's a better writer than she thinks. But in any case, I said, but you do like to talk about your subject, right? And she said, yes, of course. I said, great, then you can do the spoken form. And here's the thing, talk about resources. Time to share my screen again. You can record yourself, right? You can record audio, very, very easy to do. You don't even need a fancy mic like I've got. You can get much less expensive mics than this one. The one we often recommend is the Yeti Blue, right? It's fairly inexpensive. The last time I checked on Amazon, it had gone down to around $120. Might take a little while to get one now, but I don't know. I don't think this is going to impact the prices of things like that. Hopefully not. But if somebody can run over to Amazon real quick while we're talking and find out what the Yeti's going for these days, that's probably the easiest, most common mic people get. And the thing about it is you're going to get really good audio quality out of it without having to spend a fortune, right? So the Yeti Blue, and then when you speak into something, and there's a lot of programs you can get that will record the audio for you. You can, even Camtasia, you can use it just to get the audio part recorded if you want. But then you're going to go to a site like rev.com, and it's extremely inexpensive to get your audio file transcribed. So now you can take the spoken form of what you've done and get it into a written form. And now you can put a blog post up there with the transcript, and you can put the audio recording of what you said right there in your site. And immediately you can create engaging content that will allow you to get the message out there to people who are interested in what you're offering, letting them know what it is you offer. And of course, it's not some sales message. You actually teach them something. You offer them something of value. You have some knowledge that is sort of back of what it is you plan on offering as what you're going to do for a living remotely. So using the bookkeeping example, you can do what I did years ago and start creating content that teaches people how to do different things in bookkeeping. Okay, and what's going to happen, of course, is eventually people are going to grab onto your content and say, wow, this person, I like the way you talk, I like your style, I like the way you teach, you make it easy to understand. And a lot of people will only come for the free stuff, but eventually somebody's going to hire you and say, you know what, I need to go further. The stuff you put out there for the general public can only be so specific. I have more specific questions I need answered. What will it take to hire you to help me, right? And that's exactly how that works. So again, just recapping that part, we have three main forms of content. There's the spoken, the written, and the video. And you have no excuses now. You can easily do the spoken. You're passionate about whatever it is that you do or you want to do. So you can do the spoken part, and you can use a product like Rev to get it transcribed. So now we've got the spoken and the written covered. Okay, so it looks like in the chat we've got the Yeti is going for $130 now on Amazon. Okay, so not too bad. I'm going to try and show you mostly low-cost options today because the assumption if you're just getting started out is that there are budget concerns, but you're going to have to spend some money, hopefully just not too much. Mariette says, otter.ia is mind-blowing for transcribing. So I'll save the chat and make sure that I include all these resources. So if you do have resources, please go ahead and put them in the chat, not the Q&A, because the Q&A will get lost, but the chat I'll be able to save a transcript of. So I don't know anything about that, but if Merit says it's good, I have no doubt it is. I've just always gone to Rev because it was the first one I heard of. The prices seemed very reasonable, and I heard about it from a lot of people whose opinions I trust and respect. So check out Rev, check out otter.ia for transcription. Next, and I think this is definitely going to be top of mind for people, is where to go to find work. Of course, I mentioned social media and content can bring it all together for you so that, what do you call it? So that people can find out who you are, what you do, who you do it for. But then there's also websites you can go to. There are freelance websites. In fact, if you Google freelance jobs, you'll find probably all three of the ones I'm going to mention and a lot more. So we have Upwork is probably the most popular one. There used to be Elance, but Elance was bought by Upwork, right? So Upwork ate Elance. There's still Fiverr, I believe. And then I found something interesting called Flexjobs, which looks like they came up a lot in the search results. So again, if you Google freelance jobs, you'll find these and many more resources. But just be careful. Some of these, like we were discussing in our 97 and Up group this week, there's another one somebody mentioned, I think it was called Bark or something like that. And people said it was actually very spammy. Like basically what happens is they put information out there that somebody's looking for a bookkeeper. And then the next thing the person knows is they get slammed with 800 bookkeepers reaching out to them because they've, shared that out with people. So I'm noticing in the Q&A, there is one question I wanted to address going back to the bookmarks. Marcia's asking, it says, it seems like my bookmarks approach is kind of a personal project management tool. Yes and no. It's a reference library, right? In fact, within that, I had a folder of bookmarks that refer specifically to apps that I would put under the heading of project management. So I don't know if I would categorize it quite that way, but close. It's, the idea is just keeping it organized, and the most important thing is knowing that I can find what I'm looking for when I need it, right? And then getting back to the freelance job sites, what I would do is certainly start with Upwork because it's probably the most popular one these days, and just get in there and get a profile up and write as much as you can. You can always go back and tweak it and make it better and add more to it, especially as you then, the other thing I'm going to recommend, of course, is hone your skills. Go out there, go onto YouTube. There's a million videos on a million different applications that if you want to learn bookkeeping, I've certainly got plenty of videos on how to use QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. Although these days I mostly just do new videos on QuickBooks Online because that's the direction everything's going in. But you can certainly get a lot of free resources that can teach you skills, which then when you feel comfortable offering services based on now having acquired those skills, then you can go back into your Upwork or whatever other profiles and add those things in. The more you can offer in terms of services, the more chances you have of getting clients and being able to bring in some money that way. Of course, there's a limit to that. You want to offer a wide range of services, but they need to be somehow related. Because the other thing you risk if you start going all over the place with it is that you can confuse people, right? And then they come onto your Upwork profile and they're like, wait, I don't know what this person does. Are they doing bookkeeping or are they doing marketing, right? So you have to keep it clean and clear and focused in terms of what you do. But that doesn't mean you can't start putting in a wide variety of tangent services that you can offer based on some core common theme that you can string through it all as a thread, right? So that's going to be important. So again, freelance jobs, Upwork, Fiverr, Flexjobs were the top three that came to mind. And then the, the job boards. You can also, even if you're looking really just to do freelance, a lot of times you can reach out to people who are posting part-time job wanted ads and convince them to hire you as a consultant instead of part-time, or you can work a bunch of part-time jobs. So under the job boards, there's definitely ZipRecruiter and Indeed. Those are the top two that came to my mind. If anybody else has suggestions for job boards and where to go. I remember years ago when I was first hitting the job market and when I first moved to California, this was like in 2003, the big job board then was monster.com. I don't think that's even around anymore. I remember looking maybe like a year ago. It was still there, but it didn't seem like people were using it. I think Indeed and ZipRecruiter have kind of taken over that space largely. In the chat, I'm looking, and Carolyn says she just got off the phone with QuickBooks Online Support. She says there's a big uptick in desktop to QBO, people looking to convert because, again, people are looking to go more remotely. And by the way, it's not that hard to do the conversion, but a lot of people seem to think it is, so they'll hire you and pay you to do it for them. To do the conversion. The conversion itself, I should say, is not that hard. The prep that you need to do to make sure the conversion goes smoothly, that's another story. But that in itself is a huge skill that you can offer, and it's easy for you to learn how to do. If you're just looking for some low-hanging fruit, some skill you can pick up so you can turn around and offer it, that's a perfect example. So, Carolyn, thanks for bringing that up. Now, next thing on my list is just in terms of I don't even know if I would call this equipment, but the bottom line is you want to make sure you have a good high-speed internet service at home. If you're going to do this stuff from home, if you're going to be working from home, working remotely, you're going to be transferring data. You're going to be, if you follow my instructions and start doing content, especially if you're doing videos, you're going to be uploading large files to the internet. Even short of doing that for marketing purposes, I'm going to get to this a little bit later, but there's going to be a lot of talk about using services like Loom to do short videos by way of customer support, because sometimes it's a lot easier than writing it all out in an email. If you can record a short 30-second video and send your customer a video to look at to show them how to do, XYZ step by step. So in order to make sure those kinds of things go smoothly, to make sure you're not running into too much friction or it's not taking up too much of your time, a good high-speed internet connection is critically important. I would go a step further and say that you really should be set up, like I've got here, to where you're able to be hardwired into your router. You're never going to get as good of an internet connection on a Wi-Fi. So make sure that your home office is set up where your router is close enough by that you can be hardwired in. Because I know a lot of us in 97 and up have what I'm going to suggest you should make sure that you have or can get it, which is the high-speed fiber optic, which if available in your area, and I think pretty much everybody does have it available by now, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but it's where you have a gigabyte of data going both up and down. It's super fast. What used to take me, an hour to upload, I can now get uploaded in, 5 to 10 minutes, and that's if the file is very, very large, right? So make sure, call your provider, make sure you've got that super high-speed fiber optic internet connection if available. It's not as expensive as you would think. I think most of us are able to get it now for about $50 or $60 a month, right? I see Greg nodding. He's giving me the nod. Yep, that's about what it costs. So not too bad, especially when you consider this is kind of in lieu of rent. That's the way I look at it. I don't have to pay rent. I'm not in an office space. I'm working from home, but I will need to pay for some apps and things in order to facilitate the processes that I need for working from home. Robin Talbot says, I'm getting a cramp from all the note taking. Don't worry, Robin, it's being recorded. You'll get the recording. You can take notes later. And Tony says, not in Canada, it's $75 to $100 a month. So that sounds like that's because of the currency, exchange. Obviously, it's a little more expensive. So all things being relative, but I think it's still worth it. If you can swing it, if you can manage it, like I said, just think of that as your rent, right? If you're not having to rent an office space. What mobile hotspot do I recommend? I just use this puppy. I just turn my phone into a hotspot when I am out and about. It's the most secure thing that you can do. I don't like to go on any public Wi-Fi, especially when I've got clients' banking data or access to that data on my computer. I just don't chance it. So wherever I go, I turn my phone into a hotspot. Every service provider these days, I'm pretty sure, has that ability, rolled out onto your phones so that you can just turn that into a hotspot and do it that way. I don't trust any public Wi-Fi's, would never do it. I don't even plug my devices into chargers at airports when you can go to an airport safely. I have these little Anker chargers that I use, and I have several of them always fully charged. One of them alone can charge this guy twice. the smaller ones can charge my tablet once, and the couple bigger ones that I have can probably charge my tablet a couple of times. So I carry a bunch of those around. They're not expensive. You can get them for anywhere from 16 to 30 bucks each, depending on how much power it has, how many milliamps. So those are, just to show you what I'm talking about, they're called Anker charges, so that when you do have to leave your home office and you need to make sure that you'll have power, it's Anker, A-N-K-E-R. Of course, you'll find them on Amazon. And this is, I think, one of the ones, I have a few of these, and I just bought a few more. Like when this craziness all started, I said, let me stock up on charges. You never know. If I lose power or something, I want to make sure I can power up my devices for as long as possible, right? So I bought a few extra chargers just recently. And as you can see, I mean, some of them can get real expensive. Again, this one's 20,100 milliamps. So that can hold a lot of juice, which means it can recharge a lot of devices many, many, many times over. So definitely worth the money and worth the extra security of not having to plug your devices in at the airport. A lot of those charging stations at the airports, there's some scary articles about how people are able to like put things in those things that will give them access to your data the minute you plug your device into them. So don't trust the airport charges. I look around when I'm at an airport and I see all these people plugging their devices in, and I worry for them, but I don't want to stir up a panic. But someone else recently on Facebook, one of our accounting colleagues, was saying something about how she was concerned. Then I said, just get one of these charges and then you don't have anything to worry about. But it was pretty apparent she didn't want to spend the money on the charges. But it's going to cost you a lot more money if you have a security breach. So I think it's worth it. Okay. Now, let's dig into some more tools, because again, I'm still on the major topic of just getting organized, right? Because that's the first thing you're needing to do is get organized. And there's some apps we can use that will help you do that. So the first thing I want to do is sort of reintroduce an app that I haven't talked about in a while. Usually about once a year I come back to this because it's just such a cool app. And it's great for everything from flow charting to organizing your ideas. And they've done a lot with it over the years. It's called The Brain, right? And so this whole thing is a brain. And then I just created as an example, this is my remote work brain. And just think mind mapping coupled with project management, coupled with you can even store documents in this thing. Every one of, yep. Oh God, I thought I did. Sorry. Thank you, Greg. See, this is why I need Greg in my life, among other things.
It's about the only reason I'm around.
To remind me to share my screen and to start the recording. So this is the brain. And you do have to pay for this app. So again, like I said, I'm going to try and keep everything low cost for you that I'm going to recommend, but not 100%. This tool costs around $250 a year for a subscription for this. It backs up to the cloud, right? I can click this little cloud button, and I just created this morning, so it's confirming, do I want to upload this local brain? I'll say upload. And it's not much to process, so it should be pretty quick. Boom, sync completed. It's now backed up, and they have a pretty good mobile app. Their mobile app used to be terrible. It's gotten really good. So what this thing here at the top, where it says My Remote Work Brain, this is called a thought, and I can create a child thought, I can create a parent thought, and I can create a side thought. I don't know what you'd call that. If that's a parent, that's a child, I don't know, maybe that's like a brother or sister, something like that. But as I go into each of these thoughts, I have a little notepad here, but I can add all kinds of things. Let's say I want to do transcription resources. I'll create that one. And then we have Rev, and we have, where did that go? Let's try that again. There it is. Now I have two Revs because I thought it didn't create it properly. So I'm going to delete that. Okay, and then we want, Marriott had recommended otter.ia. But watch what I can do now. Let's go back to the web. And let's go to rev.com. I just want to grab the URL real quick. Back to the brain. And I'll click into Rev. And I'm going to hit this plus sign, and it gives me a list of different things I can add to associate with that thought, one of which is a URL. So when I paste the Rev URL in, it launches a little browser within the brain. And it'll take a minute, but boom. Now right within the brain, I'm on Rev's website. Let's do the same thing with otter.ia. All right, and one thing, a little tip, when you're going to websites like this, there's a lot of tracking code in here because they want to track where you came from, but it's messy. I don't want all that in my tool. So I figure out where the actual URL ends. And if you notice, if you look very closely, right after this / is where it says login, and then everything after the question mark is all tracking stuff. I don't even necessarily want the login page. I got redirected there. So I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to hit enter to make sure it still takes me to their website. It actually forces me back to the login page. Fine, I'll live with that. But the moral of that story is keep your URLs clean. Now I'm on this one, enter the URL, paste it in. And of course, this tool, the brain, has really good search. So now if I type Rev in the search, boom, it finds it. So right away, the brain is one of my favorite tools for just kind of keeping ideas and information organized, right? And you can obviously go a lot of different ways with this. So again, check it out. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep today. I'm going to go wide. I want to cover a lot of different things. But the brain is definitely at the top of my list in terms of really cool tools you can use if you can afford it. You know, if you don't mind spending the money. Like I said, it's about $250 a year. And you can collaborate with people, but the downside of collaborating with people is they each also need to spend the $250 a year, and then you can share brains with people, right? So like Greg and I can share a brain if we wanted to. So
if we share the brain, you'd remember to share your screen.
That's true. Then I wouldn't have to have you remind me because it would just be there. Okay. Now the next option I want to show you is absolutely free. It's called Dynalist. And what I love about Dynalist, especially why I made sure to put it kind of early on in the list of things here, is that Dynalist is so versatile. It can be used for so many things. Think bullet points on steroids, right? You can use it for note-taking. You can use it for project management. I can put dates in here, and I can even do recurrences. Okay, so this can be everything from taking notes to organizing ideas, bullet points, to project management. So if you're really on a low budget and you want one tool for it all, start with Dynalist. Okay, it's just a very easy tool to use. Another thing we went through recently in 97 and up that I want to show you, I want to make sure I show you is one of the options here. And what makes this so cool is, so let's say I have idea number 1 that I'm going to want to execute when I'm starting my new remote business, right? Every time I create a new bullet point, I can click into that bullet point, and that becomes like its own page. So I can add notes and things to that. It allows me to focus. And notice what it does, it starts to create a trail of breadcrumbs so I can see kind of where I am within the bigger picture document. So I'll call this sub-idea number 1 within idea number 1. Okay, and I can go into that one and see it creates the trail. So if I want to get back up to where it said working remotely, I just click there, and now I can see the whole thing, right? The way to make sure, because it turns out that's not set that way by default. We just discovered this the other day. So if I go into my settings, under control, you'll want to scroll all the way down in the main preferences here. You have to check this option off that says use bullet point to zoom in. So Dynalist is definitely an amazing tool that you can use. Like I said, I use it for meeting notes. You can create a section here like this called meetings, and then I'll put, if I have a meeting today, I'll just stamp the date right in there. It looks funny while I'm editing that line, but now I can go in. Notice what it does. It renders it as today's date. And let's say this would be under client X, and now you're seeing how easy it is to reorganize this. You know, I just use my tab key while I'm on a line to indent it. And now I can go into today and start taking notes. And I do this all the time when I'm on the phone with a client. I take my notes in here. And then and this, by the way, copy and pastes beautifully onto a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever you want. Once you're done, if you want to just send it to a client, or you can paste it into an email. But also these documents can be shared, right? I can manage sharing right here, and I can enter email addresses, or I can generate a link where I can send them the link and they can get access to, to the notes that I've taken. So again, Dynalist is an extremely versatile tool. And then the next thing, while I'm mentioning it, is Google Docs. I'm a big fan of G Suite. My whole business is run through G Suite. G Suite is paid Google. And real quick, before anybody even asks, yes, it's extremely secure. Okay, the paid one is extremely secure. It's got HIPAA compliance, meaning it's good enough for healthcare records. okay? And what I love about this, excuse me, if I don't choke, is I'm in Chrome, like I said earlier. If I open up a new tab and I just need to quickly get a document open on the fly, docs.new, and in 2 seconds, I'm off and running and I'm in a Google Doc and I can start taking notes. So sometimes I get a call and I happen to pick up the call instead of letting it go to voicemail, which is rare, but I do that sometimes. And it's somebody who's interested in my services and I just need a super fast way of getting something open so I can take notes. I don't rely on my handwriting because I've had a computer since the 6th grade, so my handwriting is terrible. But I can get this up pretty quickly. I usually have Dynalist open too, so that at the very least, wherever I am, I can just create a new line somewhere and go in there, and then it's easy to move things around. So either one of these tools is really good for just on-the-fly kind of note-taking, right? Okay, so, and I know I'm already running short on time. I can't believe how fast the time goes by. So I'm going to whip through the next few sections of this kind of quickly. Like I said, my goal is to make sure that I cover this all so that you have the recording to refer back to and you can review the resources later. The price range of G Suite, of course, if you go to gsuite.com, you can go through all their pricing. It's pretty cheap. There are plans as little as $5 or $10 per user per month. And then there's enterprise level plans. So it ranges, I think. And then I went pro, thanks to Greg, and that gave me unlimited storage, which means I can put big video files in there and there's no limit to that. And I forget what I'm paying for that. Greg, what does that plan cost again? Do you remember?
So it has just changed, and I don't know what the new price is. Additionally, with smaller organizations like ours, we actually are limited to 1 terabyte of data. But if we end up having 5 people on our plan, which you might, I'm only at 4 right now, so then we do get the unlimited.
Okay, yeah, I went to an unlimited plan with them, and I want to say it was something like 65 or 75 bucks a month. It was, I remember it being sort of comparable to what I was paying for Box.com for a 3-user license, but this is unlimited users and unlimited storage. So it's about that. Best thing to do is go onto the site to check the pricing. And before you sign up for any of these, check with me because I probably have an affiliate link somewhere so they know I sent you. And it's not that I'm recommending it for that. They don't pay me nearly enough to recommend it just for that. But obviously, I would love to get credit for sending you there if you end up deciding to go there. All right, so next thing, big picture. And really the other first thing you're going to need when you first decide that today's the day you're going to sit down and start working remotely is we need some communication tools, right? So communication tool number 1 is this very tool here that we're using. It's called Zoom, right? You're going to want a way to web conference with people. You're going to want a way to get face-to-face like we are with clients and with prospects. I used to actually only get on the phone with prospects. I didn't want to bother with Zoom. And then I just realized it's so powerful and effective when you can let them see you, when you can let them see your face, when you can, it's as close to being able to look somebody in the eyes as you can get without actually meeting in person, right? So you definitely want a tool like Zoom. It's very reasonable. I think you can get a pro plan, just meetings, not webinars, for like 40 bucks a month, right? And then for 80 bucks a month or so, you can have the webinar tool, and then you can do things like what I'm doing right now. But you don't need that, so again, if we're budget conscious, 40 bucks a month, you'll have everything you need with Zoom. You can get a free account, but then your meetings are limited to just 40 minutes, and you'll have to stop them and start over. And I don't think you really want that kind of friction when you're dealing with prospects, right? It can only cause them to lose confidence. Like, hey, why isn't this guy just paying for it, right? So just pay for the thing, get Zoom for 40 bucks a month. It's totally worth it. The next thing you're going to want communications-wise is a way to stay in touch with your clients. Email is dead as far as I'm concerned. I mean, of course, we still need it for some things, but I don't communicate with any of my clients via email once they become clients. I do it all in Slack, okay? If you haven't heard of Slack, I have plenty of videos on YouTube about it. I've done a number of videos on a number of use cases. I've done full hour-long webinars on how to use Slack for an accounting firm. And I did one for how to use Slack for a realtor because I had seen a write-up done and I said, I can do the video version of what these guys are doing, and I did, and it was fun. And actually then the company reached out to me and thanked me for doing the video. So that was fun too. If you're all in with Microsoft products, then you're probably going to want to use Microsoft Teams. Same idea as Slack, very different layout, But if you're all Microsoft, then Teams is going to make more sense for you. For everyone else, it's going to be Slack, no question. If you Google Gene Marks, he did an article a few months back comparing them, and that was essentially what he summed it up, or how he summed it up, I should say, is if you're all in with Microsoft products, using Microsoft Office, using Outlook, using Word and Excel and Office 365, then you're going to want to do Teams. Otherwise, you're going to probably pick Slack. And then we have another one that our friend Teresa had recommended in 97 Up, Uberconference. And Uberconference is a great conference calling tool where you can get people on the phone, and you can have, as many people as you need to at once on the phone. Of course, if you're using Zoom, Zoom, every time you set up a meeting, there's a phone number they can call in. They don't have to have a video camera. All they need is a phone, and they can participate at least that way in your conferences. But Uberconference is another great choice. So again, communication tools, we have Zoom, we have Slack, and we have Microsoft Teams. You're not going to use Slack and Teams, I don't think. I think you're going to pick one or the other, right? Then we have note-taking apps. Again, Dynalist, no question. Dynalist is amazing for note-taking. I love Microsoft OneNote. Even though I'm generally not a Microsoft-y kind of guy these days, I do love Microsoft OneNote. And then, of course, there's Evernote. But then, of course, you can just use Google Docs, or, heaven forbid, you can use a good old-fashioned notebook. Don't tell anybody I told you that, right? You didn't hear that from me, but you can use a notebook if you want. And like a pen. I have pens. Actually, I have Nerd Enterprises pens. I keep them very close by. So kidding aside, lots of good note-taking apps, but those are kind of my top 4, right? Dynalist, OneNote, Evernote, and Google Docs. And by the way, Dynalist has an awesome mobile app too. The experience is just as good on the mobile. That's one of the problems I often have with these apps is they work great on the computer, but then you go to the mobile and they don't work so well. But Dynalist definitely works beautifully on the mobile. Okay, so there's your note-taking apps. Project management, again, Dynalist. Like I said earlier, Dynalist is going to be great for project management. It's great for doing remote client meetings. Like I said, you can set up a document and share it, and you can have, you can be collaborative with it. There's also our favorite in the accounting world in our 97 and Up group seems to be ClickUp, right? So ClickUp is a really cool tool. Let me share my screen real quick just to see if I can give you kind of a sense of it. And I'm going to open it up on my other screen so I don't accidentally reveal any private client information on there. But I just want you to get a look at the layout of this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to see if I can pick on somebody really quick. That's not too bad. You know what I'll do? I'll go into one of my courses. It'll just give you an idea as to the layout. So here is, in ClickUp, you have a few levels to the way things are structured. At the highest level, you have teams, and you're going to have one team for your whole company, basically. Then within that, you have spaces, right? And within each space, you have lists, which is what you see here under courses, where I have just this thing called a generic list, and I can rename that, right? And then each list gets tasks inside of it. Okay, and then inside of a task, you can have subtasks, you can have checklists, you have rich text notes. Once you start typing and highlight something, it will give you this, WYSIWYG type editor. WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. Okay, so you can easily, I love this because you can format it, you can share this, you can collaborate, you can invite people in, you can set recurring due dates, right? And I love these little quick things. So many times this comes in handy where I'm like, all right, this is supposed to be done yesterday. I didn't get it done. It's not going to be today. Let me just quickly update the due date to tomorrow so that I know tomorrow I'll see it and get a reminder that I still haven't finished this thing yet or followed up on it, right? So there's all kinds of things you can do. Again, I'm going wide and not deep today, but ClickUp is hands down one of our favorite project management tools to use. Airtable, I've already mentioned. Airtable is a database. I set up a database here in Airtable for a specific purpose in terms of bookmarks, but think of Airtable as a spreadsheet plus a relational database where you can create lots of different tables and link things back and forth. So if you need that kind of sophisticated sort of data management, it built into your project management world, then Airtable is no question the tool to use for this purpose. It's really versatile, but as with a lot of these kinds of tools, there's going to be setup required, right? So if you want a simple project management tool that's ready to go out of the box, then you're going to do ClickUp. If you want more ability to customize things, then Airtable is going to be the way to go. And then the other one that's also one of my favorites, it's right here in my office Bookmarks because it's one of the things I use very often, is of course Smartsheet. And Smartsheet's great because Smartsheet is like a spreadsheet, but again, it has powerful project management tools under the hood, so to speak. And I don't know why it's not letting me log in. You also may have just noticed that I use LastPass for password management because again, as you start signing up for all of these services, oops, let's get out of there. That's one of my clients' projects. As you start using more and more of these services, you will need to track passwords. And you just use LastPass because it's secure. You don't have to worry about where you put the passwords. It just gets managed for you, and it also has a great mobile app. So use LastPass for password management. Smartsheet, let me just quickly create a new sheet here, just so you can get a quick idea. With Smartsheet, I'll click into my new sheet. Again, it's like a spreadsheet, but I can attach files. I can have a comment thread on a particular row. And when I'm setting up these columns, I can set up all kinds of things. I can set up, obviously the date can be used for a due date, but you can have all kinds of dates. I can have a start date and an end date. If I'm doing this for a property management company, I can have a lease start date and a lease end date. The possibilities are sort of endless. I can do a single select drop down, a multi-select. So the fact that you can set up these different columns different ways is what makes Smartsheet get real powerful. By the way, back to Airtable real quick, same idea. I have all different kinds of, in fact, Airtable has more kinds of columns that you can do. And it has a lot of, like the roll-up function is a lot like a SUMIF in Excel, if you know what that is, right? So Smartsheet is also super powerful. One of the things I love about Smartsheet is when it comes to collaborating with clients, because most people get the spreadsheet-like layout of it, it's usually really easy to get clients in and get them using it with me. Whereas Airtable may be harder to kind of get them to sort of buy in and understand how to use it. So Smartsheet, when it comes to collaborating with clients, is usually my first choice, for that kind of thing. ClickUp I use more internally. I don't necessarily collaborate with clients on it, with a few exceptions. If I know my client is a bit more tech savvy, then I'll let them collaborate with me there. Earlier I mentioned that there's a tool called Loom that you can use to record quick videos and send it to clients. But the other one I want to mention that does the same thing, but I like it because it does other things too, is Snagit. Snagit is by TechSmith, and the same company that makes Camtasia, which is what I use to create all of my on-screen videos. Snagit lets you take screenshots. So also when I'm creating content, any screenshot I ever take that I put in my write-ups is done with Snagit. And it's just really easy to use. Sometimes I use it because I download stock photos and I just want to resize the photos, and Snagit just makes that really easy to do. I probably use Snagit that way more than anything else, is just to resize photos and then resave them. Anyway, sorry, I was just looking at the chat for a second, but I'll stop in a minute. I know I went longer than I said, so I'll stop in a few minutes. I'm almost through the kind of list. And yes, I'm just giving you a broad base of apps that I'm covering so that I'll give you a lot to think about. I'll put the outline up, and then, like I said, I'm going to mention some resources for how you can follow up with me and kind of ask questions, and I can make sure that you get any support that you need, any support that I can offer. So Snagit is great because Snagit will let you record short videos and easily share those videos with people. Then we have scheduling, right? We need some scheduling apps. First of all, if you're using Microsoft, then you're using Outlook, and that's going to be your calendar. If you're like me and you're using Google, then you're using Google Calendar. But in addition to that, you want the ability, if you're working remotely, to be able to schedule appointments with people and to be able to send somebody a link and say, here, click on this. Because otherwise we waste so much time back and forth in emails trying to figure out when there's a mutual available time, right? And so for scheduling, there's a ton of these. I'm going to mention some of the top ones that come to my mind. I use Schedule Once. That's what I use. It's also called Once Hub, right? Once Hub is like the bigger. They have a few products within that, and then Schedule Once is one of them. Acuity is a popular one. Calendly is a popular one, and Book Like a Boss. Somebody mentioned to me. I've heard of that one a few times. I always forget about it. And then somebody put in here from 97 Up something called Doodle. Is that a scheduling app, or did that get misplaced here somehow? Or maybe that was Greg doodling in our shared Dynalist thing.
Probably.
Okay. Equipment, I mentioned the Yeti Blue mic, because again, if you're going to be doing web conferencing, you don't want to be holding a phone, right? You want to get a good mic that you can use to get good audio out of that. Webcams.
There's multiple people in the chat mentioning that Doodle is a great way of getting multiple people to be on the same page for meetings. Seth, this has happened once before. I think we lost your audio. You're currently muted. Yes, sir?
Okay. So the other thing is webcams. You don't need to spend a lot of money on a webcam. You don't necessarily need good video. You do want good quality audio, right? Which is why I pushed the Yeti Blue. A lot of people ask me what webcam I use. This is the one I use. You can probably see right now I have pretty good, crisp, clear
built-in
image.
speakerphone. So you don't need...
Sorry, I heard somebody talking, but I don't know if that was for us. Again, you don't need really good video. I have good video because I have a good webcam and I have good light, right? But again, that's not important. The important thing is good audio. You want to make sure people can hear you clearly, right? Video is nice to have, and if you feel like sparing the money, as you can see, this webcam is not cheap. Okay, I think I got it for less than this. I don't think it was this expensive. It looks like it may have gone up. Again, with more people looking to work remotely, these kinds of tools, this kind of equipment probably is going up in price based on just the increase in demand. But this is super good quality, and sometimes people notice that when I'm on a web call, excuse me, so they'll ask me, hey, Seth, what do you use? And that's the answer. And that's all you really need equipment-wise. Obviously, you need a computer and an internet connection. And then if you have a good mic and a good webcam, that's really everything you need in terms of equipment, especially when you're just getting started out. Okay, so now I see Christy clarified that Doodle is a good way to figure out when you have a lot of people trying to coordinate a single meeting time. Okay, so that's what Doodle does. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to kind of go over for today was just organizing your day, how to stay focused. One of the things that everybody loves when we bring it up in 97 and Up is to use the Pomodoro technique. And what the Pomodoro technique is, first of all, of course, you can Google it. But the Pomodoro technique is a system where the version of it that I've seen most often is you're 25 minutes on and 5 minutes off. So you work for 25 minutes. You set a timer, right? On my mobile, I can set a timer here, right, for 25 minutes. And I can't tell you, if you actually try, the only way you can understand this is if you actually try it, and everybody who's tried it has confirmed that it's amazing what a difference it makes. It seems like such a dumb, simple thing, but there's a lot of psychology to it. When I sit down and I start doing something, and I know I only have 25 minutes, and then I'm going to take a break, first of all, I know I'm taking a break in 25 minutes, so somehow it changes your whole mindset to where you're not letting distractions in, because you can get distracted in 25 minutes when the time is over, and you're going to give yourself 5 minutes. But the trick is to give yourself 5 minutes away from the computer. So it doesn't mean you take 5 minutes and go on to Facebook or do something else on the computer. You walk away from the computer, you go outside, you go for a short walk, you give your brain 5 minutes to reset, because we're getting hit with so much stimulus all day long that we can really get burnt out and fried after a while if we're not careful about achieving the right balance, right? And that was really the last major point I wanted to make for today, is that balance is going to be really important. I share a lot of this. One of the things that was at the core of the process when I started developing the outline for what I wanted 97 and Up to be, a lot of it was based on a book that I read called The 1 Minute Millionaire. And it's based on how millionaires think 1 minute to the next, and it's also based on how they structure their time 1 minute to the next. And one of the things early in the book that I read that struck me was that these people have very structured lives. Every hour of their day is accounted for. And so what that looks like is that even their downtime is accounted for. And I took that whole concept and I built it into my calendar. So my calendar even has appointments for when I'm reading and learning stuff. Because that way I know throughout my day, at a certain time that day, I have it in my schedule that I'm going to stop at, say, 5 o'clock. And from 5 to 7, I'm going to be reading or watching videos or taking some course that I'm taking, because I'm always looking to make sure that I'm constantly learning new things. By constantly learning new things, it gives me more and more ideas and ways to offer more services and broaden my offering. So Tony asked, what is 97 and up? I'll answer that question because that's one of the things I was sort of coming to, and then I'll stop and let people ask their questions. I'll stick around for a little while longer just to answer any immediate questions. But 97 Up is one of the resources that I said I was going to mention. It is my sort of mentoring program. It's made up of all accountants and bookkeepers, and we have a Slack workspace, and there's a course that I built that helps you get set up and run and get organized. And one of the first things actually is a very detailed and deep time management exercise that's built into the same template that also helps you outline your financial model for how you're going to get clients, what kind of clients you want to get, how much you're going to charge them each month based on what services you're offering. And when you take the number of clients you're going to get every month in those services times the rates you're going to charge, it all rolls up into a goal sheet, which then you can use throughout throughout every day, and you kind of key in, okay, here's how much money came in today. My goal was this much. Am I under? Am I over? What do I need to do to make it up? Or if I'm getting ahead, how long will it take before I'm behind again if I don't get any more new money coming in? So it's a very detailed template. You spend a couple of hours setting it up, but once it's set up, you spend no more than 5 minutes a day just keying in a number and looking at it just to see where you're at. And again, it's another tool that helps you achieve your focus. So that, in a nutshell, is what 97 and Up is all about. It is our mastermind group. It is our mentor program. It's a lot bigger than just me. We have some amazing people in the group that you can reach out to so that you're getting more of a third-party view on it, and not my biased one. But 97 and Up is how I help people. And just real quick, I need to let one of my bookkeepers know that I'll be there in 15 minutes.
Seth, while you're doing that, I wanted to mention about 97 and up, and maybe it ties into the whole working remotely routine, so to speak, is social interaction. And that's what we actually get a lot of stuff out of this. I'm sorry, I'm getting alerts left and right here that I gotta hop off in a minute.
Okay.
And I think you just muted yourself again.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the social aspect of working from home is that you don't get the water cooler talk. You don't get to hang out with somebody in the break room and this, that, and the other. But being able to have a crew of people to lean on when we have problems that we need to get solved, or just want to shoot the shit, that's what we can do for each other as a crew, and that's what we do in 97 and Up.
Yeah, it's a great resource, and I'm not just saying that because it's my program that I've built. I'm saying that because I'm very fortunate that we've had an amazing group of people who've signed up and joined the group. We even talked recently about limiting who we let in because we're afraid if we get too many people in, it's going to get sort of diluted, but I'm not too worried about that. So what I wanted to offer for anybody who's interested in that is a 14-day free trial if you sign up, and then I can give you a coupon code for 25% off. Normally the cost is $197 a month, so with the coupon it'll be $150 a month. But you can also try it for 14 days and make sure it's going to be right for you.